Welcome back to another explainer. If you're a focused learner looking to get the absolute most out of your coding tools, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're tackling a massive friction point in modern development and looking at a super elegant solution. We are going to explore how to optimize your AI workflows in Claude Code using something called Subagents. Specifically, we'll see how they work behind the scenes to keep your coding context clean. Let's get right into it.
Space is finite. It's a stark, unbending reality of computing, right? And it is the absolute truth of your AI coding sessions. No matter how powerful the model or how advanced the tool, the memory space it uses to hold your current conversation has a hard limit. Which leads us to this incredibly frustrating question. What actually happens when your AI loses track? We've all been there. You know the feeling. You've been working on this really complex feature for an hour. Your AI coding assistant is doing great, and then suddenly, bam! It completely forgets the instructions you gave it at the very beginning of the session. It starts making mistakes. It totally loses the thread. Why? Simply because that finite memory limit has been hit.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the context window problem.
The core issue here is just how quickly that main context window adds up. Every single time you chat with Claude Code, you're adding to that main window. But it's not just your prompts and its answers. No, every tool call it makes, every file read it performs, every single search result it pulls up, all of that raw data gets stored right there in your main conversation thread. And because that space is finite, it fills up with all this noise incredibly fast. Once it hits capacity, that's exactly when the AI starts losing track of the earlier parts of your conversation. You haven't changed how you're prompting it, you've literally just buried the AI in its own search history.
Section 2. What are subagents?
Well, a subagent is a specialized assistant that Claude Code can delegate tasks to. Think of them as highly focused helpers. They're designed specifically to take on the messy, data-heavy fieldwork away from your desk. You give the main AI the command, and it just taps these specialized assistants on the shoulder to go do the heavy lifting in a totally separate room.
Section 3. Keeping the context clean. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the life cycle of how a subagent actually operates. It happens in 5 distinct steps. First, the subagent receives a custom system prompt defining its role along with the specific task description based on what you asked for. Second, it spins up its own completely isolated context window. Third, it executes the work, so reading files, running searches, whatever is needed. Fourth, it returns a concise summary back to your main thread. And fifth, and this is absolutely crucial, the entire subagent conversation is discarded completely. All that messy raw data, just thrown away.
And that discard step is exactly why this concept is so powerful. As the quote says, you get the answer without all the noise of the journey it took to find it. The subagent basically acts as a perfect filter. It blocks out the messy fieldwork. Your main context stays completely clean because it only ever sees the final polished result, not the sprawling, chaotic research process that created it.
But you know, in software development, there's always a trade-off. Because you are discarding that isolated context window, you do lose visibility into exactly how the subagent reached its conclusions. You won't see the exact sequence of files it opened or the dead ends it hit along the way. You're sacrificing that step-by-step visibility for the sake of a pristine, highly focused main conversation thread. Honestly, for most long coding sessions, this is a highly worthwhile trade.
Section 4. A practical code-based example.
Let's consider a scenario. You're exploring an unfamiliar code base, and you need to find the specific service that handles refunds. This is a classic developer headache, right? It's a super simple question, but answering it usually requires a ton of tedious digging through folders, files, and function calls. Without a subagent, Claude might have to read 15 different files, run several complex searches, and trace through multiple interconnected function calls, all of which just dumps massive amounts of noisy text right into your main context window, cluttering literally everything up just for one single fact. Okay, take a deep breath, because with a subagent, the experience is so much cleaner. You ask the question, the subagent spins up, it does all that messy digging in its own isolated context, and then it simply hands back a focused, single-paragraph summary right to your main thread.
15. That is the sheer volume of noise avoided in this simple example. Your main context window only records your initial question and the final summary. Absolutely none of those 15 intermediate file reads will ever clutter your screen or eat into your finite memory limit.
Section 5. Built-in and custom options.
And this brilliantly illustrates the built-in subagents that Claude Code ships with out of the box. We basically have 3 main types. First up is the general-purpose subagent, and that's designed for multi-step tasks that require both exploring and taking action.
Next is the Explore subagent, which is heavily optimized for fast searching and really navigating through unfamiliar code bases. Finally, there's the Plan subagent. This one is used specifically to conduct research and analyze your code base before it ever presents a formal plan of action back to you.
But you aren't limited to just the defaults. You can easily create your own custom subagents by modifying your configuration file. You literally have the power to define a custom system prompt and grant specific tool access based on whatever you need. This means you can build tailored subagents for your specific daily workflow. You could create a dedicated code reviewer, a strict test writer, or even a comprehensive documentation generator. Basically anything you need to handle specific, messy tasks entirely outside of your main window.
So let's just quickly review the key takeaways from today's explainer. First, subagents allow you to break your work down into focused, manageable pieces. Second, they keep your main context window perfectly clean by strictly isolating all that intermediate work. And third, they bring back just the information you need as a really concise summary. Remember, isolated intermediate work is the absolute key here to maintaining a clean context. So the crucial point is captured perfectly in this quote from the source material. The less noise in your main context, the longer and more effectively you can work. It's so true. By utilizing subagents, you're actively protecting your finite memory space. You're ensuring your AI doesn't forget those early instructions, and you're vastly extending the lifespan and the productivity of your coding sessions. I'll leave you with this question to think about. What custom subagent will you build to clean up your workflow? Whether you rely on the built-in explorers or write a custom prompt for a dedicated test generator, the power to unclutter your context window is entirely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.